Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News for this Wednesday. It is the third day of December 2025, and since we last met, we've had four extremely important stories come across the wires, so let's get right to them. First of all, from YNET Global, Donald Trump says phase two of the Gaza ceasefire deal is going to happen pretty soon. That's his claim. We'll see about that. And then from JFEED N12, Hamas leadership is terrified of an Israeli surprise attack as the Rafah crossing announcement ignites Egypt war. That's the crossing to get into Egypt from Gaza, and Israel is going to open it back up, it seems, in a couple of days. And Egypt is very upset about it, and Hamas is more upset. So we'll see what happens there. And then a huge story here from the Jewish News Syndicate. From Jerusalem Post. Israel-Lebanon are holding the first, or to hold the first senior level talks in decades as U.S. pushes an engagement between the two countries. First time since 1991 the senior officials have met together. That's from the Jerusalem Post. And now from the Jewish News Syndicate, Israeli delegation to visit the White House for upcoming summit on AI. AI again hits the headlines. All right. All four of these stories have huge implications for Israel's future, and of course, that would mean last day's Bible prophecy. So let's get right to them. First, from YNET Global, headline number one, Trump says phase two of Gaza ceasefire deal going to, quote, happen pretty soon. U.S. President says agreement is moving along well, hours after Hamas breached the truce in Rafah and wounded four IDF soldiers, and Israel retaliated with airstrikes. He said the second phase is moving along well. And speaking to the reporters in the Oval Office, we have peace in the Middle East. People don't realize it, saying his peace efforts enjoy tremendous support and claims he has the backing of some 59 countries. All right. U.S. President's comments came after the Israeli Defense Forces said terrorists emerged from a tunnel in eastern Rafah and attacked troops from the Golani Brigade who were searching the area for additional underground routes. And so what they're doing, they're still clearing, the underground area in the 57% of Gaza that they've got under their control. That is the Israelis. Soldiers, it said, had earlier spotted a suspect near a tunnel entrance and chased him. About 30 minutes later, at least five terrorists burst from the tunnel and opened fire at close range. So, according to the Israeli Defense Force, one of the attackers fired an RPG or placed an explosive device on a Named armor personnel carrier, which injured four soldiers, one of them seriously and two moderately. A fifth soldier, we're told, sustained light injuries. Israeli forces killed at least two of the terrorists, while several others escaped back into the tunnel network. Prime Minister Netanyahu, of course, convened a security consultation following what officials described as a, quote, blatant violation of the ceasefire by Hamas. Israel informed the United States of the incident and of its intention to respond sharply. A security official said, adding that Israel will not let the Rafah attack pass. In other words, anytime Hamas does this, Israel is there to make sure they pay a huge price. So later in the evening, that's this evening Israeli time, the military said Israeli forces acting on intelligence from military intelligence and the Shin Bet carried out an airstrike that killed a Hamas terrorist in southern Gaza in response to the breach. Gaza media, for their part, reported at least four Israeli airstrikes at Khan Yunis, claiming at least six people were killed and several others wounded in the area of Al Mawasi. The IDF said its strikes targeted weapons depots, manufacturing sites, Hamas command and control centers, and operatives, including commanders. All right, here's our response. Well, we may be down to only one deceased hostage body now that hasn't been returned by Hamas, as medical authorities are checking the latest remains that have been returned to Israel this evening. All right, so we're getting very close to all the hostages, alive and dead, being returned. The problem, of course, is that in phase two, Hamas must disarm, and there has to be some type of military force in Gaza that will enforce the disarmament. All right. Well, to date, as we've talked about, neither of these two major points in phase two even seem remotely possible. Hamas refuses to disarm, and no country is going to step forward and say, "We'll take over the gig there in Gaza, where Hamas is now ruling." Now, of course, we'll follow this as an ongoing story. It's going to continue on, but sooner or later, push has got to come to shove. Now, and a similar story on the same line, Hamas's leadership, we're told, is terrified of Israeli surprise attack as the Rafah crossing announcement ignites Egypt war. That's from JFEED or N12. Not an official war with Egypt, but they're very much upset with one another. Fear of targeted assassinations and a swift return to war has gripped the Hamas leadership following recent Israeli strikes, even as a contentious announcement to open the Rafah border crossing sparks a diplomatic row with Egypt. The leadership of the Hamas terror group is reportedly expressing growing concerns over the prospect of an Israeli surprise attack, which would include targeted assassinations of senior figures and a full-scale resumption of the war. These fears escalated following the elimination of the Zaytun battalion commander Ahmad al-Salim and the Hezbollah chief of staff Haitham al-Tabatabai during the ceasefire period. All right, now see, on the one hand, the first story is that Trump says with peace is going on, that we're almost into phase two, everything's going well, we have peace in the Middle East. And now we have this story about Hamas worried about, the fighting picking up fairly soon. And of course, if they don't disarm, something has to give, something has to happen. So, in light of this tension, we're told, Israel's security establishment anticipates at the moment Hamas senses Israel is losing patience and is close to renewing the war, the terror group will instruct its operatives to transfer the remaining fallen hostages. And there's only two of them. There may be only one after tonight. The move would be intended to apply pressure on Israel to transition to stage B of the agreement. And again, like we said, they're looking at the remains right now, and by tomorrow morning, our time, it'll be, Israel's 10 hours ahead. We'll know if this was one of the two remaining hostages. Okay, so like I said, their Hamas leaders are currently working. Now, this is interesting through informal channels to secure commitment. Now, get this, that the demilitarization of Gaza and the transfer of its government will not actually happen. They don't want to demilitarize, and they certainly don't want to transfer their government to some other entity. So that's what they're working against phase two. Despite this, the terror leadership believes the United States is likely to pressure Israel into moving to Stage B, which is expected to include an Israeli withdrawal from the territory it controls, the establishment of a new tent city in Rafah, the reconstruction of the entire area, and the full opening of a Rafah crossing for pedestrian entry from Egypt, followed later by the entry of goods. Well, of course, Israel's not going to do this until Hamas demilitarizes, disarms itself, and their zone is demilitarized, and there's some type of force in there to make sure that's good. So again, we're at a stalemate here. Israel, like we said here, it seems Israel's going to probably resume these target assassinations if there's no movement on Hamas of disarming on their own. And sooner or later, something's going to happen, like we said. Hopefully, Israel will not be forced to compromise and allow Hamas to keep their weapons, as well as the rule over about the 47%, whatever the percentages of the Gaza Strip that they control. Again, only time will tell. We'll keep you posted. Our third story, and this is a huge, huge one. Israel and Lebanon hold the first senior level talks in decades as U.S. pushes engagement. From the Jerusalem Post. An Israeli official told the Jerusalem Post that the Israeli representative spoke directly with the Lebanese representative and that another meeting is expected to take place soon. For the first time since the Madrid Middle East Conference in 1991, a senior Israeli official met with a senior Lebanese figure directly on Wednesday. Uri Resnick, deputy head of the Foreign Policy Division at Israel's National Security Council, met in Nakura, Lebanon, with the U.S. President's advisor on Lebanese affairs, Ms. Morgan Ortagadas, and with Lebanese civilian representatives. The most senior among them was attorneys Simon Karam, former Lebanese ambassador to the United States, who was appointed to head the Lebanese delegation, is known as an opponent of Hezbollah. Again, this is huge news. It hadn't been since 1991 that such a meeting occurred between these two countries that share a common border, and also they share a common enemy. Hezbollah, which of course has been fighting with Israel. They've had a year of peace, but they're still there rearming. And the people in Lebanon don't want Hezbollah to continue to be there. They fear them too. They fear they'll cause more destruction in their country. So we'll see what's going to happen there. And finally, again, this ongoing story, of course. And finally, headline number 4, Israel delegation to visit the White House for upcoming summit on AI. This is from the Jewish News Syndicate. The Jewish state is a leader in frontier AI cybersecurity and specialized chip design. Jacob Helbeld, U.S. Undersecretary of State for Economic Affairs, told reporters. Israel will be among a select group of countries participating in the PAX Silica Artificial Intelligence Summit at the White House on December 12th. PAX Silica is a strategic economic security coalition building effort for the AI era that unites countries whose interests converge around securing the elite silicon to compute supply chain. Um, Jacob Helberg, the state of economic affairs, this person we met just told reporters. So they want to secure the supply chain of this silicon. It establishes a new strategic reality that economic security is national security, and ultimately it's going to bring nations together that share a common vision for technological leadership, safe and secure supply chain, predictable access to energy, silicon, and compute, he said. U.S. and the U.K. U.S. and Israel will be joined at the summit by Australia, Japan, the Netherlands, Singapore, South Korea, the UK, and the UAE, which Helberg describes as a high-performance grouping of countries covering critical modes of the AI economy. He told reporters Israel is a leader in AI cybersecurity and specialized chip design. The Trump administration is looking for the summit to deliver concrete cooperation across minerals fabrication and computing clusters and having a full stack approach to AI power, along with the establishment of investment pipelines for new projects, including in minerals and next generation computing centers. All right, they want to basically coordinate together. And here's the issue, of course. It's moving at an exponential pace, a record pace AI. Building, it's going on everywhere, spending literally billions of dollars, different companies doing this to be the first to be ahead of the whole AI issue. And it's taken off, like we said, like something that we've never seen before. And this is like the Industrial Revolution took a few years. This is taking hardly any time, and it's going to only get more and more advanced as time goes by. So what this is, of course, is a number of countries with similar goals to have a supply chain to make sure the necessary silicon and to make all the necessary items for the AI to be built. To build these, you need tremendous amount of electricity, tremendous amount of water when they build these facilities to do it. And so they're working on it now day and night, 24/7. All right. Basically, like as we have recently noted, AI seems to be in the news every day. We do know that the final Antichrist will rule over implies modern day technology that only recently has come into existence. We talk about this in our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end, sign 15. There are at least three passages that assume technology that only exists in our day and age. It was mind-boggling to commentators in the past that couldn't figure out how this could be literally true, thought they should take the passages symbolically. But now we know these things can be literally true, literally around the world in real time. People can see events that are taking place. Again, that's sign 15 of 25 signs. We're near the end. It's called The Exponential Increase of Technology. Book's a free download from our website, Educating Our World, under the heading of Bible Prophecy. All right, well, with these headlines, we see things moving forward on both Israel's northern and southern borders, where the fighting may soon pick up again on both fronts. As always, we will keep you posted. I'm Don Stewart. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless you.